Righty-ho. So, this is going to be an absolute nightmare to do. To give you an idea of the bit I'm starting on. Dun, 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 dun. So, if you can use your imagination slightly at this point, the only bit that's going to stay in this is the middle section, so about so wide. Hang on. So you've got the area where the main stair will actually come down and hit what will be the ground level. And then you'll have the sides as well. So that's essentially where the two bits are coming from, and it'll be the same on that side. Just to make my life difficult though, because, you know, why not? It's going to be a curved edge as well. So rather than just being a squared off section, I'm in theory going to attempt to have it curved. It may not work. But yeah, to do that, I'm actually going to need to make a good old-fashioned voxel curve template, just so I can use it to effectively cut out the shape. This is the boring bit. So yeah, the idea is here so that I don't completely screw up this. I'm essentially going to create a properly smoothed curved edge first, and then actually use that to cut the shape out of the stairs rather than actually just doing a really, really random cut. Because I could go... like, in theory, I could just do that. Basically, you just use a massive delete tool and just cut the edge out. But I'm not convinced it won't completely screw up lots of it. That, and I don't think it's quite the right size as well, if that makes sense. But you can see, because of the size of the stairs I've built, if I was trying to cut out using this, I wouldn't be able to do it as neatly, just because I'd probably have to use this around about 3 or 4 times to get it the right shape. You could in theory do it if you wanted a slightly tighter curve, but then you've got no real way of effectively then putting up a nice, neat looking wall as well. Whereas with this, I'm actually going to do it as like the whole thing. So I'd basically use the curved wall that I'm going to build to cut out the shape in this actual stair, but then once I've done that, because that'll still be in place, I can then build up the shape of the wall I want as well around that. He says. Yeah, I am keeping an eye on chat as well, so if you do want to ask questions, feel free. Sometimes if I'm trying to desperately concentrate on what I'm doing, I may go quiet for a bit, but that usually means that there's potential for me to monstrously screw up what I'm doing. So it's nothing personal. Yeah, I do often get asked why I tend to do this twice. Um, it's personal preference, mainly because I'm really, really picky when it comes to curved edges. I, God knows why. Um, but if you basically do it in a two-step like this, so basically all I did was take the middle of the first basic block that I'd smoothed, take that, make a secondary template out of that, smooth all that as well. It tends to give you a much more smoother curved edge than what you'd get just for doing it off the one thing. So yeah, that's fundamentally what I'm aiming for right there. So it's like, I don't need it 30 wide. I actually need it a little bit smaller than that. So that's why I don't mind it tapering off at the edge like it's done there. But the main things you need to kind of look out for when you're doing a curved shape like that. The first part of it is that the actual width of the curve itself stays pretty much uniform along the whole length. So that's all quite nice and smooth on there. There's no real distortions on the actual texture either. So that is more or less ready to go. Unfortunately, that's the easy part. So yeah, because I have absolutely zero faith, I'm going to pull this off without any faults whatsoever. I'm just going to very quickly template this up, because I don't think I actually have got the whole template yet. Tower of Pimps? No, that's right. I was doing the yeah, I was doing other bits last night. I'm basically templating a couple of things in advance for a build I'm doing further down the line. Hey there, Pastor. No problem, man. Yeah, I show this on a stream so that everyone can see how much I screw up, because I'm bound to screw this up. The bit that we have, it's actually just a chat tab that we've made for the guild. Anyone can make a chat channel. This is just one that we made for the guild. But it's really quite nice and easy because we've basically just said members, friends of the guild, whatever, you can feel free to join. And yeah, it'll basically show what it's showing here. So it'll tell you when someone logs off. Everyone can chat together, and it's more or less the best way you can do it right now in game, because a lot of that isn't really there right now. Improvements for that are coming. I mean, they have said that in the roadmap for the game. It's just that a lot of it, certainly for the chat side of it, is very basic right now. Oh wow, I didn't realise it was quite that wide. That's going to be a bugger to do later. Yeah, I mean, as a guild, we've done a couple of different things. I mean, we do have things like Ventrilo, and obviously we have our own website and stuff as well. But for people who either don't have a mic or are literally just wanting to just hang out for a bit, this is probably the best way to do it right now. This is gonna go so badly wrong. Right, hang on. So yeah, the reason why this is going to take me a long time, I can't just paste that round edge onto this, mainly because what would happen the blank space that I'm essentially grappled underneath on this side, it would hold a lot of that shape, not necessarily all of it, but it would hold a lot of that, and it would completely screw up what I have, mainly because a lot of this, the actual stairs themselves were made using a line tool, so if I actually just start willy-nilly cutting back through this, I won't be able to repair it. So that's like the main issue I have. So we have to do it the long way round. So yeah, all I'm doing right here is just so that I don't, well, hopefully, so that I don't screw this up. I was just measuring out the width on the very edge of where the build is, so that I can then hopefully follow the arc up as I copy and paste this through. The way I'm planning to not mess this up, or at least not mess it up as humanly possible, is to match the width of the stair to the right amount of the curved template, so that I'm only basically copy and pasting it in bits as I go up the stair. Because once I've actually got the voxel edge in there, I can start very rapidly cutting out the bits I don't need. But if I don't do it this way, it's gonna completely screw up. He says. So yeah, as you can see, what's actually happening is that it's going to start cutting itself through the existing line I have. So I'm just going to have to be careful when I'm slowly cutting through this. Because you see, you can undo, but as soon as you do that, can you see that it's actually not kept the shape of the line? So it doesn't bother me for this bit because I'm going to cut back through that anyway, but I have to be very careful not to screw up as I'm placing this down, because odds are, because I'm placing a smooth surface onto a angled piece of line, stuff can go very wrong very quickly. Yeah, if it was... I mean, a lot of the problems of what I have here, it's purely because of the fact that it's a smoothed, curved voxel edge being placed onto essentially an angled piece of line anyway. So a lot of that will be essentially just the game not liking what I'm doing. So I'm essentially trying to trick it into letting me do relatively smooth lines and curves where it doesn't like to do it. Yeesh, it is not liking that. Ah, it's just really not liking that placement. Uh-oh! Hmm. This is gonna get ugly really quick. So yeah, it looks like, because of the angle I'm trying to get at, it's not wanting to keep the effectively what is a perfect line vox like shape. It's not wanting to hold the shape if I cut it, which isn't ideal. Yeah, I might have to get a little bit creative with it. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of like where like things can screw up so easily, because in theory it should work. In practice, not so much. Yeah, the main problem I have is that the game will always try and keep space if you're basically pasting in it, which just for doing stuff like this just makes it a nightmare. Because the yeah, the problem that you'll get with this is that it will always do things in the order that you place them down. So because I'm putting this bit down after I've made the stairs, it will always take priority over this template I'm trying to cut in. So the problem with that is because there's space in what I'm selecting, it'll go, oh yeah, I need to make space there. So yeah, it would be nice if it would well, it would be nice if it just wouldn't do that. But it would be nice if it could just kind of clean up the excess space. But that would be far too easy. Yeah, I may actually do it that way, just so I've got a relatively smooth edge, so I actually have a little bit more above the stair I'm building on. I have done a smooth-ish diagonal before. And you can't get it exactly perfect because you kind of have to completely screw around with what you're doing with the voxels. And the only neat, or well, I say neat, the only neat-ish way I've managed to do it is if you effectively start off with a microvoxel size and try and get the game to make the angle for you, and then you can kind of stack it up to get a little bit bigger. But I did that for a couple of weeks back. I can't remember how long it was now. You lose track of time in this. But I did it for when I was making the Game Boy template. Yeah, and as soon as I place them, it distorts them again. Because I tried to do it for the start and select buttons. Also, shout out to Old School. Yeah, well, it depends how you want to trick the game a lot of the time for stuff like that, because it's yeah, trying to make it a smooth single voxel isn't really the smartest thing in the world, and it's kind of the way the current smoothing tool works, because the game needs something behind it to smooth off of. Now, that phrase makes absolutely no sense at all, but the reason why you need the 1 voxel buffer around things for when you're smoothing is so that the game understands where the space is for when it's creating the angle. Otherwise, that's where it's like, if you didn't actually give it the buffer, it just wouldn't smooth out into a line, it would just keep it as the square voxels. And it's also like why things like the single voxel line can't create angles and stuff as well, because it needs more of a shape to create a ramp. I showed it a little bit more yesterday when I was doing some arches, and the problem of it is that underneath all of this it's still squares. So it's like you can do whatever the hell you want with it, but you've got to keep in mind that at its core it's all squares, so it needs something to work off. Um, a lot of it. I mean, the only reason why you have trouble is that even when like you're making a template, the only reason why this doesn't work, and I'm having to basically trick the game like I'm doing here, is that all the templates include space. Even if it doesn't physically show it when you actually select it, it will always keep the space. Now, if the game did it where it would only select the points of where you had a physical voxel rather than the voxel and the space, that would be far more useful. So it's a combination of things, but in an ideal world, I would like the selection tool itself to only select voxels that had an actual block there rather than necessarily the space. But the problem with that is that you have to actually have the space there so that the game knows to make a smooth line. So, yeah. Me being picky. So yeah, actually before I place this is kind of what I mean by that, so you can kind of see that the template area I have selected is basically just 4 square voxels. But if the game wants to make the smooth shape out of that, the smooth curve, it has to keep those blank bits and everything else around that just so that it can create a clean line rather than just leave it as squares. Yeesh. Chopping out big chunks there. Undo nicely, you bastard. Wow, this is determined to misbehave on me. Oh, it's not going to let me place back over until I delete it. You bastard! Apparently I don't have enough of the 20 billion chunks of marble that went into this. And yeah, this is, in truth, this is a lot of what I was expecting to happen, hence why I templated it first. Because the odds of it doing it right the first time was slim to none. So I'm just going to try and do it a slightly different way. That's another really annoying bug that gets me as well. Like, once your template passes a certain size, you often have to paste it down, or basically undo and then redo, just to get it to keep the whole shape. Raid! And yeah, this is purely so that once I'm done, you're probably going to see about 20 million ways how not to make this. So yeah, what I'm thinking of doing here is to, as much as humanly possible, I'm going to try and not place onto the existing stairs that I've got. So the idea will be to try and leave them as much as I can and just build on top of them. And then when I come to delete bits, the actual edge I'm probably just going to repaint. He says. Yeah, even my problem with doing this is because it's a because it's an angled shape. A lot of the voxels don't line up evenly, so like you can even see on like both edges here, it kind of like overhangs both ends of the step. So yeah, this is gonna. I had to go and make it complicated. Yeah, weirdly, I actually don't mind it doing that. Um, where it's creating the space under here, if I can actually just get a selection in there. You can just about see that voxel in there. Those sort of things are far easier to patch up than, and like there's going to be one there. They're a lot easier to patch up compared to the existing line tool. So I'd actually much rather do it that way. Yay, flying through my template. And just to kind of go on what you're saying there, Pastor, a lot of like getting that sort of stuff is even going to be different for. I'm not sure when they're going to be implementing it, but I mean, the big stink that everyone had recently was how they're going to be selling resources in effectively their cash shop. And people who are in alpha are going, well, how on earth can you put resources in there when, at least in terms of the progression right now, everything is gated by resources. So it's going to be completely different for launch. Exactly what they're doing there. It's like every single little step is just getting more and more annoying. Yeah. Pastor, what they were saying is that the only reason why stuff is gated by resources right now in alpha is because they're essentially the only real thing that's in there right now. So they haven't got the other systems in place yet. Yeah, well, the next wipe, or at least the next scheduled wipe that they've said they are still planning to do, is for the start of closed beta, which is still marked down as the 31st.